Hi everyone, welcome to Murphy's Little Garage. Today, we're going to be installing all of these goodies, but this video is going to focus on these guys right here. Kelly Aiken with KELLTRAC's new diff bushing setup. To get these in, we've got to take the entire IRS subframe out so that I can cut the old bushings out and press these in. I have some actual proper bearing pusher, puller, press tools and cups and things like that here, so hopefully that won't be too bad. Dang it. If you're curious about the install of his Posi lock or these BMR camber arms and the lockout brackets for the factory adjustment, these I'm going to make into separate videos along with at the same time as doing this video, so look out for those. Alright, I'm not going to pretend like you need my help to understand how to jack up your car or take the wheels off, so I'm going to go ahead and get the back wheels off. I'm going to get the whole car picked up off the ground on 4 jack stands because I'm going to need to drop the IRS subframe to do the whole process I'm doing today. But the video that you're watching specifically tailored to one part will address those individually. I'd like to show you a visual representation of what it looks like when the IRS subframe shifts because there's no lockout kit on it. Look at this flat flange on the fender. Now watch this. I'm gonna move over till that flat disappears. Boom, right there. See, the tire's gone. You can't see it up here anymore. Let me move back. See the tire? Gone. Look at this. There's that same flat flange. Let me move over. Boop, flange is gone. Look at the tire. So the IRS subframe has actually shifted this way 1/4 of an inch. That's huge. That means not only is the subframe moving on a launch, but it is so violently shifted that the bolts are pinching the subframe with the bushings all loaded up off to this side. That's a no-no. Let me show you why this car does that. And there you go. It only takes so many 150-something, 60-foot launches trying to pick up the nose of this heavy-ass car before you're going to do something like this. So this is why we need to put in a Posi lock as well as some upgraded diff bushings and all of that fun stuff to try and stop this from happening. All right, saved you the trouble of watching it get jacked up and the wheels coming off. Now, what are we going to do here to get these pumpkin bushings in? See, the diff is buried down in there. The entire subframe has to come out of the car. You can do this without taking apart very much except for the pumpkin itself by dropping the entire subframe with the rear suspension and everything still attached. To do so, I'm going to disconnect my electronics. There's a plug there to remove the ABS sensor, wheel speed sensor right here, and then the parking brake here. Make sure to disconnect your battery before you disconnect these sensors. Hard lesson learned. It really pisses the computer off when it can't see these things, and it'll freak out and throw a bunch of codes. If you don't have the right code scanner, you can't get rid of this without bringing it to Ford. I'm going to disconnect the brake caliper and hang it off to the side. I'm going to disconnect my shock here. So I've got some rubber over these ears to quiet this up a little bit. Don't mind that. I'm going to disconnect my shock. Probably just go ahead and unbolt it below 2 and get it out the way. And once this is done on both sides, I'm going to bring you back. I'm going to show you the bolts that we need to remove to drop the entire subframe out. Of course, the exhaust and the drive shaft are also in the way at this point, so we're going to need to remove those. All right, y'all can see here I've got the caliper hanging. I've got all of the wires disconnected and just folded up right here. I've got my KELLTRAC inverted rear strut shock just laying off to the side right here. Nothing else is attaching, at least on this side, the subframe to the car except for the primary subframe bolts. Something I wanted to point out here, just how much the subframe is moving. Look at the upper spring mount, the rubber isolator. This has moved enough, the subframe has twisted enough that it's actually allowed the spring to walk off of the isolator, both top and bottom. It'll be a little hard to see the bottom one, but it's no longer sitting in the end of the spring cradle down there, and this one has completely walked off. Like this part of the spring is supposed to be way over here, and this whole thing is kind of twisted and pushed forward. That's how hard the cradle is rocking backwards and allowing this spring to move. Now, I'm gonna go do the other side. I'm not gonna show you that on camera. Next time you see me, I'll be under the car taking the exhaust and the drive shaft out. All right, I'm under the car. Now you can better visualize just how perturbed the isolators are for these springs from the subframe twisting and trying to force it out. But anyways, it's very obvious here that the exhaust is under the subframe, so I'm going to need to drop it. I'm going to do so by relieving it from the two pipe hangers over there out in the middle. And then, I mean, I'm sure you all have taken the exhaust out of your car, but we've got a hanger here close next to the tip, and there are a pair of hangers hiding behind the shield. If you undo these two bolts here, or the ones that are inside the subframe, you can take, folding it right here, you can fold it under itself and get it out of the way, or you can take the whole thing off, but you've got a bunch more bolts to take it off, whichever you want to do. So I'm going to get the exhaust off, this heat shield bent back and out of the way, and then lastly, the drive shaft. Oh, let me get here, it's a little tight. The drive shaft, I'm going to unbolt it from the front of the differential, and it's just going to lay down under the car right here, and then we'll be ready to drop the subframe out. Now, something I just noticed, this is a 355 Torsen car, at least that's the way that I ordered it, but this is an aluminum differential housing, and it was my understanding these are supposed to have the cast iron differential housing, so I don't know what that's about. Maybe someone who knows better can tell me what exactly happened there. But you can see right here, here's the rubber bushings that we're after right here. And to get to them, this has got to come completely out of the car. So let me get the exhaust drive shaft out the way. Let me point this out to you while I'm thinking about it. There is a diff breather hose that goes to the back top of the differential. It comes up here into the passenger side wheel space. You can pop the hose off right here, and then right up under the frame right here, there's another place where it's attached, and just lay the breather hose down. All right, drive shaft and exhaust is out. The transmission, if you pull back on the connector where the cable goes on the side of it, you can actually pop it off the transmission and move the shift selector without getting in and out of the car. 2 clicks back is neutral, and you can rotate it to get the bolts out of here. Side note, screw the person at Ford that put Loctite on these bolts. It is beyond ridiculous, very, very difficult to get out. I'm going to clean this up and just use blue Loctite for the next time. Now it's time to drop the subframe out. I have one subframe bolt here. I'm going to back it out most of the way and stop. These 2 bolts need to just come out completely and set off to the side. Another one like that on the other side. And then one subframe bolt, the other subframe bolt. Obviously, I'm doing this on the ground, on a lift with all of the proper equipment. This might be easier, but it can be done on the ground. So once I've got all of the bolts loose and barely holding on, I'm going to put a jack under the pumpkin here, balance it, possibly strap it onto the jack. I'll see how well it balances, and then drop it out, and I'll bring you back. All right, y'all, and just like that, a little bit of finagling. It came down a little, but heavy. So I definitely, on the way in, I'm going to back up on the pumpkin a little bit whenever I secure it. But look at that. Nothing else was attached to it. The entire subframe dropped out. And now we have access to see everything. So these are the 4 bushings that need to be worked on. So the next thing I'm going to do is unbolt 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to lower the differential. I'm thinking I don't even need to pull the axles. I should just be able to lower the differential. I've got the subframe blocked up. And then see if I can go ahead and start cutting these out. All right, and just like that, all 4 bolts are out and the diff is sitting loose. Now, it is resting on the axles in the subframe. I'm not sure yet whether or not I can get these bushings in and out with this much room, but we're going to find out for sure. Can get these out. So the next thing that needs to be done is the factory bushings need to come out. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to cut the rubber around here to get the center to come out. Once the center is out, there's this metal sleeve. You can see the rusty bit of metal compared to the painted subframe. This sleeve also needs to come out. So one good cut with a Sawzall up into the sleeve, and claps it a little bit, and it's going to slip right out. That needs to be done on 1, 2, 3, 4. Time to get these bushings out. You can see here I've got a wood blade on my Sawzall, and I'm doing so because it's got a nice short point on it that I can use to start at an angle and get into this bushing and then work my way around the steel sleeve, and then that frees, of course, the bushing to come out of there. I hadn't pried it out, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove the centers out of all 4 of these, and then I'm gonna switch to my steel blade, and I'm going to get in here and carefully cut this sleeve, collapse a little bit, and pull it out. All right, as you can see, all 4 bushings are out. Metal blade, cut the sleeves. Just like that, 1 quick buzz and a couple of taps, a sleeve is out. Let me repeat. All right, using my bushing driver and cup set, I'll link that down below. Just want to give you a visual of the one that I'm practicing on before I give you some tips. Got this larger cup, basically the largest cup that's in the kit, sitting on this side of it, setting in this touring bearing with the nut poking through. You may have to reset this multiple times. I initially drove it in with just these washers up until it touched, and then put the cup on. That way it was a little easier to work with. And you can see here I've got also the largest bushing driver disc on this side. Now the touring bearing isn't touching, but I'm doing all the heavy lifting over here to squeeze this in. Let me take this off and I'm going to explain a few things to you. All right, I'm messaging Kelly. I wish I still had one of the stock ones in so that I could actually show you how soft those stuckers are. But let me just give you a visual here. Put bolt in, twist, you could actually limit the metal insert in the middle and touch the other metal. Super soft. I'm talking like crank down at this angle, like uselessly soft. Here's the KELLTRAC's bushing in here. Look at this. Oh, I just knocked the diff off the book. Kelly says it's technically 42% stiffer. Boy, does it feel even stiffer than that. It just moves enough that it's gonna keep from having a bunch of NVH here. This is all solid except for a pocket here and there, whereas the stock ones have huge pockets on them, especially the front one, which is the worst place for it to be, is super loose. Anyways, you can see here the bushing is installed with these 2 arrows like this, left to right. It is parallel with the frame. That is very important because there's a pair of pockets in here that are designed to allow a certain amount of movement of the differential. These need to be installed this way. So the pockets in the differential, these arrows, they need to be like this. One of the things that's going to make it easier for you to put these in, a little secret sauce tip from Kelly and from me to you, put these in the freezer for 3 hours before you put them in, so the material stiffens up and shrinks a little bit, and it'll keep them from mushrooming out as you try to push them in. These suckers fit in here tight. So whatever you're using to drive them in, you need to be prepared. If you're just going to use all thread and some big washers or whatever, it needs to be some real strong washers. You need a real strong cup on the other side. It's $100-something bucks for this driver kit, and you have it forever to replace bushings and bearings. So just get it, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and go pull another one out the freezer. I'm gonna use better lube this time. I have my lithium grease here, but it kept drying up on me too much and causing a bunch of friction as I was pushing it in. So I'm gonna actually put some moly inside of the bushing hole and some moly on the bushing itself, and then probably just lubricate as I go in, which is something you're gonna need to do to keep the lip right here wet with lubrication as you push the seal in. Boom, and just like that, all 4 of Kelly's bushings are in the hole. Let me tell you, the secret was a thin coating of this Moly EP inside of the bore of the subframe and just a little bit on the leading edge of the bushing as it came in. This stuff is expensive, but it's super slippery, and you'll end up using it for everything. So just get you some of this. And then as I was going in, I was constantly wetting my all thread and bearings and the very lip of metal right here with this white lithium grease, just to keep it wet so it'd be more slippery. And if you use those 2, it significantly reduces the amount of tension it is required to slip that bushing in. That sucker will go in tight otherwise. So listen to what I'm telling you. Now look, before we go any further, this is the 4th S550 style subframe bushing replacement I've done in my life. The competitors' aluminum lockouts and the poly diff bushings, they are easier to put in. There's no way around that. You can literally just tap them in with a hammer or slip them in, and they're very slightly friction fit, and it's done. In fact, some of them you can even chase in while the subframe is still in the car. But they are very noisy, and for a really nice car like this that people are going to be driving around on the street trying to run nines, you probably don't want it to sound like your rear end is about to vibrate out the car. It sounds horrible. And Kelly put a lot of engineering in this to make a bushing that marginally increases NVH while stopping the differential from shifting left and right, up and down, which could hurt half shafts and the drive shaft. But don't take my word for it. Here's Kelly. He's going to tell you why.
So the truth is I really like the stock bushings, honestly. I typically like to run them myself and push the cars as far as they'll go with the stock bushing. Especially the Shelby cars. They actually have better bushings. A lot of people don't realize that. The issue becomes when you start making, 700-800 plus rear wheel horsepower. It's not that the bushings don't work, it's that they cause excessive deflection, which causes harm in other areas. It can cause damaged half shafts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that being said, all these years, and I've designed and tested plenty of kits over the years, a whole bunch actually, and I've tested the ones that are on the market from other companies. At the end of the day, I don't want my customers' cars going while they're driving their car. Here's some actual footage of some testing that I've done. So with this kit, it's designed really nicely. So that rubber outer shell, the coating on that outer shell, it really helps isolate it. So basically with this rubber kit, you're going to get the performance of a quote unquote quality poly diff lockout kit without all that humming and that gear noise and that clashing. It is definitely by far, in my opinion, the best offering now that it's available. I'm not just being biased. I mean, this is something I've wanted to release. I'm not joking, for 8+ years, right? So I'm happy that I got the chance to actually do it. So, let me know how you like it.
Thanks, Kelly, for that fantastic explanation. Thanks for the great product. Now, let's get that differential bolted back up and put this crap back together. All right. So the rear bolts are the shorter ones. These get torqued to 129 foot-pounds. You have a lock washer, you have a big washer, goes through and into the ear of the differential. The front bolts are the longer ones. These get torqued to 162 foot-pounds. You see you've got a smaller washer, a larger washer, and then you're going to have a large washer, a lock washer, and the nut. All of these should get a good dab of blue Loctite. The head of these Allen bolts is a 12 millimeter, which is not standard in your average kit of Allen wrenches or drivers. So be aware of that. You check and make sure you have a 12 millimeter available before you start your project, so you don't get annoyed and have to go get one. I should take a minute to explain. Obviously you saw me never take the axles out of here. Well, it's not necessary. I'm going to try to remember to drop a reminder to tell you not to take apart your axles before dropping the subframe. Even getting the torque wrench in here is certainly possible. 162 foot-pounds is really tight. You might want a second set of hands to help you hold the subframe still while you tighten that. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and install some BMR upper camber arms, the Camber lockouts, and the KELLTRAC's Posi lock kit on this, and then we're gonna go ahead and slide it under the car and get everything put back in again. Now here comes the tricky bit, because I'm gonna do this by myself, but if you get on the diff just right, it balances pretty well. This is not gonna be pretty, so give me a bit. I'm gonna get this stuck in the car and bring you back. All right, so trick of the trade here is to get you one of these slip straps where you just press the button and you can slip the strap in and out. Go under your jack and around the sway bar, and then put the center of the pumpkin, the lid, right inside of the jack like that. And as you lift, it'll actually rotate the rear end flat. So right now I'm at the right height to slide in. Of course, as I jack up, it's going to try to lean back, and I'll just bump it out and slip the strap a little bit to keep it level as I come up into the car. As you can see here, this method is pretty effective. Like I said, I'm balancing on the pumpkin here, and I've got this slip strap on here. So as I jack up on the handle, this strap gets tighter, so the pumpkin leans like this, and all I got to do is bump the slip right here while holding the slack, and it'll just very gently move back down again, pump up, slip it, pump up, slip it, and get it right up in the hole. My springs are just making contact now. I'm going to start lining up my bolt holes and make sure my Posi lock is still in place, and get the bolts started. All right, everyone, and just like that, I've got my subframe back in. You can see our beautiful new bushings. I've also got Kelly's Posi lock in here, installed and ready to go. No big deal. So everything else we do here is going to be in reverse order of the way we took it apart. Drive shaft, exhaust, put our electrical connectors, our brakes, everything back together again, and it'll be ready to rock. All right, everyone, I'm going to try my darndest to capture for you the increase in NVH that you might expect from the bushings. Let me be very clear here. Every car is unique depending on the amount of work that you have done. This car has drag racing rear springs, so they're heavier and stiffer. Of course, I have the subframe lockout. I have the inverted solid mount rear shocks, and I have Kelly's bushings, as well as coilovers in the front. There's going to be some noises in the video you might pick up, you may not, but that's just because race car stuff. We're focusing here on NVH created by the rear end. Normally with a poly or aluminum lockout kit, you're going to get a really harsh buzzing vibration with like metal to metal. It's really loud and really annoying. This kit does not do that at all, so there is none of that. The only thing I hear that I perceive is a slight differential whine coming from the rear end. It is very, very slight. I don't know how well it's going to pick up on camera, but I'm going to try. Worst case scenario, I'll throw my phone in the back seat by my son, which is like worst case scenario, and see if the camera might be able to pick it up. But with a loud exhaust, with driving the car with music on, you can't hear it. But if it's completely quiet in the car and the exhaust isn't too loud, you more than likely will. I'm gonna be honest with you. I may have to amplify the sound in Final Cut for you to hear this. It might be hard to hear over the blower rotor whine, but hopefully you can hear that. It's only present if you're in a high gear, right? So like I'm in 9th gear right now, and I'm going pretty quick and I'm floating the throttle. On the throttle float, there's a little bit of that differential whine. It's not a harsh vibration noise. It's just you hear the physical differential gear rotor whine, if that makes sense. If I turn the music on, I have the AC off right now, because if the blower is blowing on the fan, you can't hear it very well. But hopefully the camera can pick that up. That's it. And just because y'all stuck around to the end of the video, and my son absolutely loves the party. You ready, bub? You want to go fast?
Yeah. Sure.
All right. Hold on. You had fun? Thanks for watching part 3 of this video, which basically encompassed everything: the Posi lock system, the BMR camber arms, the lockouts, and then Kelly's awesome differential bushings. It was relatively easy to do. It's just a lot of work. It's tedious, but Physically doing it, no big deal. You can see I did all of that by myself. No one came help. On jack stands, on the ground, simple tools, except for the bushing driver, which you could get away with all thread and some washers and some sort of cup that you could drive the bushing with, but it's not that expensive. So I'll link it down below. Y'all pick that up. Anyways, thank y'all so much for coming along and watching the video. As usual, we love you. God bless. Peace.